Hi there! In this video, my friend Daniel Ocean is going to be talking about some of the really practical ways in which AI can be used in production as a technical artist. Now, Daniel Ocean is an Associate Technical Art Director at Ubisoft San Francisco. Now, some of you may know that we've been doing this series of Tech Arts Meetup presentations, and these are presentations that we have recorded over the last year or so that we're now making available to everyone so that you can all benefit from it. I'd also like to encourage you to join us if you can, and if you're in the Dallas-Fort Worth area, every third Thursday of the month for the Tech Arts Meetups. And I'll be sure to include a link in the description below with a RSVP link that you can find out more about our next event. If you're new here, my name is Nelson Lim, and I'm a technical artist and former ILM FX Technical Director. And currently, I'm also a professor at the University of Texas at Dallas, where I teach animation and games. Now, I help 3D artists master effects as well as the technical arts. If you'd like to learn more about how to become an effects technical director or a tech artist, please like and subscribe to the channel where there'll be more content in this area. Or you can also join my newsletter at www.nelsonlim.com. You'll be able to find a link to subscribe to my newsletter. Okay, I hope you enjoy the talk, and I will see you around. Take care.
Thank you. Hello, everyone. Yes, I'm Daniel Ocean. I do have the joyous opportunity to work remotely from Dallas and hang out with Nelson. I know I've met a bunch of you before, but feel free after this. There's some stuff that I can cover. There's some stuff I can't. We can always have a bit of a chat separately. And so a couple of things that I can't talk about. So obviously there's NDAs and there's stuff that we're working on internally that I will be able to show at some point in the future, probably after GDC next year. But in the meantime, I'm going to keep things fairly generic for the most part, but we can still talk on a high level about a lot of this stuff that's going on and going to impact you as you go through your careers. I won't be using any internal tool names. I will be using some stuff that's available publicly. So again, the benefit of that is you'll be able to go out and try some of this stuff for yourself and have a bit of an explore as a tech artist. What can I talk about? So I'm going to talk a bit about my path through into tech art. Usually that's one of the questions we often get, and it's usually a big zigzag path, so I encourage you to ask multiple people because it can be quite enlightening in itself. And some of the ways that we assess tools for tech art, or even just tools in general, or DCCs that come through, and if they're actually useful for production. And then maybe to flip it on its head, we'll talk a bit about how we can look to solve artists' pain points through tools, and what does that look like when it comes to AI. So I guess a word of caution is this industry, as you know, is moving incredibly quickly. Some of this stuff we talk about today could be out of date tomorrow. So just take it with a pinch of salt. Definitely do your own work as you're looking into this stuff as well. Again, I've tried to keep it fairly broad, so it's still applicable for you. So my background in emerging tech, so way back, this is over 15 up to about 20 years ago, I worked more behind the camera, so as a VFX supervisor. So I would shoot on sound stages, I would work on documentary films, and I was lecturing post and undergrad at the time. And so some of you might end up on set. I think that would be really great if you did. I did make sure I got the brand new Shine It because mine's very worn. The third edition of the VES. This is the Bible. Absolutely, if it's something you want to be interested in, you want hands-on, get it, have a read. It'll be a lifesaver. And when you're on set, the best advice I could tell anyone was get your data and get it quickly. Like that money is just getting burnt. So you'll see people's eyes look at you the longer you're there with your Macbeth chart. So take that. If that's the only thing you learn today and you end up on set, that's a good one. So for emerging tech, so being part of that kind of cutting edge part of working on stage was, I was a specialist in motion control cameras. So this is something you may or may not be aware of, allows you to repeat a motion on a pixel perfect movement over and over and over again. So it lets you do lots of different things, and there's lots of different ways that you can use this technique. And so, for example, if we needed the talent to be in a shoot with a lion, we could shoot them on completely different days and they wouldn't end up being lunch. So there's different ways that we can kind of use this. And I had to look back because the motion control camera rigs that exist now The ones that we used back then moved about 2 meters per second, which is quick when it's moving by you. But now they're about 10 meters per second, so about 20 miles an hour, these things will move by you in a pixel perfect motion. And we could take all of that motion directly into, say, Maya and have it in a 3D scene immediately and start to get those dailies out to the VFX houses or the clients, whoever we're working with. So I will show you, this is, so there's one technique that you can use, it's like a time slice. So if you get everyone to hold very, very still and move that motion control rig very, very quickly, it looks like you're taking a snapshot in space. So I do have a great example of, this was an advert for Panasonic back. So this was obviously every time they would run the motion control rig, they would reposition it and then do another one. So this is all motion control. You'll be able to see some of the 3D elements that have been comped in. And all of this is telling a short story of a robbery, so I'll let you into it. So all of this is motion control. And their abilities to still hide those cuts. As you can see, that completely loops around as well for the carousel. So fantastic use of the technique. And it's funny when you're on set, you'll see so many lo-fi ways to solve problems. When you're trying to frame up those shots and move the entire rig, you'll just get a piece of transparent film and you'll just draw over the monitor where the position was, and then you'll just reposition and match them up where it was on that monitor. And you expect it to be something really technical and impressive, and when you see someone just get out a Sharpie and that's how you get those scene cuts together is quite wild. So good. So that was a big push for me into getting involved in stuff that was new or engaging or that kind of cutting edge of technology. And that was my career moved from VFX into games. And I was a client engineer for a long time, so I worked in engineering a lot for early devices, so first iPhone, first Android, Oculus when that came around, AR and VR. So I was always working in progressively cutting edge technology, and this is a lot of hardware, but it was a lot of software as well. So that really leads me into AI. And so if I could just touch on the pillars of tech art just for a second. And a lot of this as well is going to be from kind of a bit more of a game slant moving forwards, but some of this is still going to be applicable for you. But Riot, our friends over at Riot, put a great YouTube video out a few years ago to just give you an idea of this umbrella that we have now of tech art and kind of what that really covers. And for different studios, it's different. And for some places, you're just going to be the go-to person. You're going to specialize in one thing. Some people are more generalist and they'll have a mix of things they might be more involved in. And it depends if it's going to be a startup or a VFX house with 1,000 people in there. So one thing that has changed is we're starting to see that umbrella continues to get bigger for tech art, which is great for us because there's more roles, there's more jobs, there's more opportunities. Procedural generation obviously is a huge one that's come along since this was made, and then machine learning, AI in there as well. It's something that we can actually pull into our umbrella. So that's when it all comes about full circle to what do they all cover, and it's really solving pain points for people. That's what we're doing. And so that career that I've had in emerging tech, where I've covered all of these different platforms and worked for all these different publishers, has allowed me to get hopefully a pretty key understanding of assessing something. Is it suitable? Should we use it now? Is it something that's good for production? We can have a bit of a look now at assessing the current state of AI. So I do want to maybe just to say one thing. I'm going to use machine learning, deep learning, or AI kind of interchangeably. It's probably fairer to say machine learning for a lot of the stuff that we're going to look at today. And at least in your own minds, you'll see a lot of the general public do see AI as this big, amorphous, it can do anything black box. And that's kind of not the case with a lot of machine learning. And then you've got the art community that sees it as problematic on a lot of ethical grounds, which there are, we're not going to touch on them today, but absolutely we can have a separate chat about that at some point. That is a huge issue in the industry. Some limited utility, but one of the main things for us is it's not necessarily art directable, or at least that's the assumption. So when we're looking at machine learning for tech artists, we're gonna see if it fits along with any pipelines we already have, or replace them completely. Is it something that we can actually use in our pipeline? Whenever I say SD, forgive me, it's Stable Diffusion. So Stable Diffusion is one of the applications we're going to look at today for generative AI. And similar to other machine learning platforms, it's not a silver bullet. Similar to a lot of third-party tools that you might be told about. They're not going to be something that is just going to solve all of your problems. It's just going to be something that you can actually use as part of your bigger picture. And just like any external tool, it's going to come with inherent risk. So whenever you're bringing someone else's stuff into yours, there's risk there. You don't know exactly how they built it. You don't know what it's communicating to necessarily, and you're taking a lot on faith. And very quickly, when you're dealing with your own tech debt, that can be something that you're adding to. Or if you've got someone that needs to have all the requirements of knowledge to understand that tool, you're then very reliant on that single point of failure as well. So there's other elements that we'll factor in when we're having a look at these things. So just one note, if you do go out, and I can give you some information if you actually want to start doing this yourself, and you want to do your own Gen AI work and run Stable Diffusion yourself on your own machine, that would be the way I would do it. Do not use any of the cloud-based solutions. They will just take everything you have, especially if it's your own IP, if it's your own personal stuff, you're just giving it away to them. So, and also, as a word of caution, do your own due diligence, check what it's talking to, have a look at any of these tools, look into the terms and conditions there, because they're not all playing fair. Okay, and especially if you've got any IPs that are NDA, do not go anywhere near it. If you've got any code that's NDA, do not put it in any large language models, anything like that. So speaking of large language models like ChatGPT, these can be great to create simple things like boilerplate code in terms of similarity, just go and get snippets. But quite often, the ground truth when it comes to a lot of these tools, it can be confidently incorrect. So it can absolutely fabricate something and be convincing that it's the truth. And if you don't know enough to know when it's incorrect about something, you can end up in a situation that's going to just cause you issues. So this runs counter to our work as tech artists to really have optimal code, shaders and assets that are as performant as they can be and as beautiful as they can be. So for us, large language models are not really viable for production. Like, they will get better, they will improve, there will be more confidence on where it's getting that ground truth from. But for the moment, it's something to be just at least wary of. It's got great uses elsewhere. So Stable Diffusion, then you've probably, most of you seen this. There's different options on the market. This is one that you can run yourself, so that's why it can be really good to delve into and get a bit of a feel for Gen AI. So again, you're working with 2D, so whenever we're trying to simplify problems to really assess something, working in 2D can be one step lower than 3D, so we can get some answers without going too far as well. And so we're going to focus the presentation on Stable Diffusion as our ML platform and get a bit of a look and kind of do it together and see what it's like to say, is it good for us? Is it something we can use for now? And so I'll talk about a couple of the challenges, and this is more broadly for AI as well. So there's something called the 90-10 problem. So I don't know how many of you, with show of hands, thought by 2024 we'd have rocket packs. Any rocket pack lovers? Rocket packs? No? Flying around the skies? How about automated vehicles that would be fully drivable by 2024? Yeah. So why is that not the case? It's been almost a decade, and it's really the devil's in the details. It's in that last 10%. So getting them on the road, staying in the lane, avoiding collisions, all that stuff, fantastic, you can do. But then what about if there's a wet road, or if it's in a tunnel, or the GPS fails? All of these edge cases are where you're going to start really having the difficulty, and that's going to take the longest time to get over. So when we're talking about the full adoption of AI, that last 10% we need to be aware of. So when someone comes all singing, all dancing, look how amazing this thing is, we need to look at that 10% and say, is it really going to do everything we want, or are we kind of going to get blindsided by this? There's something else as well, which isn't just AI, it's the proc-gen problem, which is the author versus procedural content. So obviously as tech artists, with just a few tech artists, we can build an entire world. Certainly Ubisoft, that's something that we endeavor to do. We have very few people build these massive open worlds. And that's something that tech art through procedural content can do very well. And we can give tools to artists so that they're semi-authored, so they do have full control over where things are, but don't have to do all the work individually. So that already exists. So this idea that AI is going to come in and fix some of these problems, there's already a consideration when it comes, at least in games, to find that sweet spot between the player's experience and is it something that's actually enjoyable, or is it just random? And where do we live along that spectrum? And then, so we have a narrative problem as well. So props and assets have a story, they have history, who own them, where have they been for this entire period of time that they've existed. And artists will look at this and they'll think about this when they're actually modeling and working to see if it's weathered, dirtied, worn, and really give life and give a history to these props. So photoreal assets can look the best when they're imperfect, as you know. So a lot of AI solutions, again, can get you very close to where it is. But when you're actually creating a scene and you're actually putting these props in a scene and they need to communicate story, that's when the artist is actually going to get in and be more involved. And the AI systems, as they are at the minute, won't have that awareness. So this one I like to call a-hole intelligence. So this, again, going to self-driving cars, there's a trouble matching human behavior. So they're built for safety. They're built to avoid people, to not drive into people. And what happened is they found that people would continuously just walk in front of these cars and not let them get through, and the cars would just stop to a halt. Whereas a human would use their a-hole intelligence to gradually push through and force themselves through this crowd, something that we can't really train the human to do. So, sorry, the AI to do. But they are looking to push into that through a couple of things I'll show later. And so this brings me then to the kind of artist intelligence then. So when we're looking at the artists, they have these powers, they'll think laterally, they'll surprise you, they'll attempt to design that's not necessarily what you asked for. And so yeah, adversarial models are the ways that AI is trying to deal with that. So we're looking at different ways. So when something's created, it's then reassessed. And then if it matches what we want, great, we'll move forward. If it isn't, then we'll continue to rework that and then reassess. So it is moving forwards, but at this stage, again, it's not quite ready for us. And so this pulls me to, is it really smart? When you look at this, a lot of people will espouse it as if it's solving all these problems. And at least a lot of the machine learning that you're getting shown is pretty dumb in a lot of ways. It's more like a trick that it's showing you. It's very impressive, but when you actually look behind the curtain and see what it's doing, when it really just knows what two words are often together or what pixels are usually next to each other for certain situations, it can't really get out of that mindset. And obviously, as it improves and we see more systems interact with each other, that's when you'll start to see complexity. That's when you'll start to see something that looks more like human behavior. So we'll have a look at, as I say, Gen AI, Stable Diffusion. There is something to be aware of as well about data security. Again, this is maybe less for you, more for the people that have to deal with NDAs, or at least when you're in studios as well. There's a huge problem with that information not getting leaked out. There's any way that you work as you go through your career, there's going to be stuff that you can't talk about, you can't show, and that's either going to be the tech or the assets themselves. And so currently there are, NVIDIA's one, NVIDIA Picasso, offering places for you to have it securely, have it safely, so people can't take that training data, which is very valuable in its own right. And so what is the promise then? So creating as soon as you get the idea of Gen AI, I'm sure all of you started thinking about how can I use it? What can I use it for outside of it just being, say, a gimmick? So if we're looking at ways to, say, take a photo scan over the actor and train a likeness on them, or we're trying to get a mood board created for the art director, maybe we can do something really quickly on that. And so there's immediately ways that you can think, oh, I think I could use it. I think we could actually get a benefit of it. So this, I don't know if you know Sam Fisher, this is from Splinter Cell. This is in Stable Diffusion, so this is not even on our training data. But you can see immediately there's already training data in there already, which is wild. You know, there's public photos out there, but images, I should say. But you can see immediately that without any training, things like brands and being on brand and IPs, it can't be like it needs to be exactly it. And so you need to start putting a lot of work in to really train these models to actually get something usable out the other end, especially for IPs that we work on in games and films. So is it art directable? This is the main where the rubber meets the road for a lot of people. So currently we've got this black box nature of you put some prompts in, you get something out the other end. Is it what you wanted? No, okay, back to square one and you work it again. So there's nuance to that, but on a high level, that's essentially what it is. Now, Stable Diffusion is deterministic, so if we put in the same input, it will kick out the same output, which at least is something we can work with. If it wasn't that, then we couldn't direct at all. And so these are some of the ways that we can start to get that input and make it more art directable. So ControlNet and OpenPose, these are ways that we can actually input a rig. So we can actually put something in and control what the AI pose is actually kicking out the other end. And so this, especially for character sheets and so forth, we can start to actually get something consistent, something we want. It's not an arbitrary three-quarter view. It's something in a pose that we actually want to take a look for. And so we can extend as well environmental art direction. So again, it's a little bit more control. It's still not full control, but we can use primitives to try and get composition. So when you're actually looking at trying to compose the image, which is a big part of the artist process, at least then you're getting something out the other end, which is not just a shot in the dark. And so again, for art direction, sometimes you'll be working on a project where there'll be a massive pivot. So all of a sudden, this character is now a different gender, or we're going for a completely different art style. And so this is something that you might be able to very quickly just propose or get in front of an art director to actually take a look at, even if it's to rule it out. So there is ways to at least give some variation there. We can also train different styles. So if we wanted to say, take something that suddenly changed biome, or actually change from a completely different art style for the game, potentially, we could start to get ideas of what that could look like. So again, very high level, very mood board stuff, but at least it's something where you could actually help inform the art direction. So one thing you might be aware of as a term is in painting. So it can be really great for bug fixing, but also it allows you to select part of that and make a change to just that one part. So it's really good if your generative AI comes with a mistake and you need to change that. Or if you, which is a pretty good one, Unity released the Muse example recently. It uses LLM for input, but you can use the inpainting here to then see a few different versions of what that red roof would look like. So it's something that's a little bit more usable for a team that might want to use this for sprite development. And obviously the big golden goose at the minute is 3D prompts. So you may well have seen some of this. I'll talk about an example a little bit later on, but this is a great one for adversarial work. How are we doing for time? This is a great one for adversarial work. So this is something where it will start to build the 3D model, and then it will run through a different AI to say, what is this? And if it is the thing that you're trying to create, fantastic, it's created it. If it isn't, then it'll keep reworking that. So you actually see these two systems work in conjunction to start to build our 3D model and get something that's representative of the 3D, the actual world. So what does that look like today? So Meshi is a system that does this. So this is the prompt. Create a wooden music box, high quality vintage. So you can see what it's kicking out. And at first blush, that looks like, okay, yeah, that's a wooden music box. It's 3D, it's high quality, it's vintage. Okay, for argument's sake, let's say that looks great. Let's ignore some of the oddities with the locks. Let's ignore some of the peculiarities that it's kind of created. And let's just say, for argument's sake, that was great, and that's exactly what we were looking for. I'll tell you what, just as a, can anyone shout out? Can anyone let me know what issues they envision from this 3D model? Topology is a great one, yeah. Anything else? What do you think it might have kicked out that might be challenging for us? Excellent, yeah, speculate. Right, yeah, so you've got no normal details there, you've got something, like you say, completely baked in. The UVs as well are a complete disaster. I can show you kind of what that actually kicks out when you throw it into a 3D package. And you can even see, as a little surprise, it's added a completely different mesh inside the object, which you probably weren't even aware of until you actually had to dig in. And like you say, just not having to break apart of those materials, like some fundamental parts of the pipeline that we actually go through when we're creating something are completely missed. So you still need to go and do all of that work. So is it really, if it gets us 90% of the way there, but that last 10% is going to be 90% of the work, then is it really ready for production at this stage? So all of this will improve, it will get better, but we're assessing now, we're assessing what it looks like today. Good. So it depends. It's going to really come down to, how many people you have. Do you have no artist? Are you a startup that currently has no 3D modeler? Then maybe this conversation is a different conversation. I would argue it's not necessarily you should hire someone, but some people, that's the situation they're in. You might be doing a game jam. You know what? I don't care that it has a whole mesh inside the chest. It doesn't open and I can't light it. But we'll leave that to the side. So as a bit of a thought experiment then, when we actually look at a case study, okay, what does it look like? So for games that are in live operations, for games that have lots of variation, lots of skins, lots of different variants for something, that sounds like it would be a great place for generative AI, that we could train something and say, okay, this is obviously the little Fortnite banana. We could throw them in, we could train it what this banana mesh looks like, and now throw me out a Toon 1, or now throw me out a Roman Gladiator. Like, would it actually be able to give you that? And machine learning, as it stands at the moment, does not really understand what it's doing. It's just delivering you something. And so we wouldn't get this variation of the actual 3D meshes that we were wanting without doing the whole body of work that the artists are currently going through. And on top of that, there's certain considerations that how we're going to animate it. What does the rig look like? Is the geo in a certain place that's going to be affecting when they hold things or crouch or run? Do we need to move things off shoulders? All these are considerations that an artist would be involved in, and the rigger would be involved in, and the modeler would be involved in, but the AI has absolutely no idea about this. So again, we're not really solving the problems of the pipeline, we're potentially adding to them. And the calculator, so you probably heard of the Tech Art calculator. So for us, whenever we're figuring out whether it's worth making a tool, how long does it take the artist to do it, times how many times do they do this thing, and is it going to be less or more than how long it will take us to build the tool and ultimately it get used. So that is something that we're always going to factor in when we look at these options, when we adopt them into the pipeline. And so that comes into, okay, let's flip it on its head. Let's look at the technology itself as tech artists and look at the problems we're actually trying to solve. And maybe if we do it in reverse, and this is how I would actually propose it, then we can start to see what we can use it for rather than it's this blanket replacement. So character turnarounds can be a great one. So the concept artist pain point currently is, hey, I have to work on all of these turnarounds. What if I did 2 drawings and got the 3/4 for free? What if that was sufficient for me? Or the 3D modeler is like, oh, what does it look like at this angle? Oh, we can throw it through the generative AI and get the 3D modeler an approximation of what that angle looks like. Now they can actually work on that gear or the whatever is a marvelous designer, however they're working. So this is something that is current, that is available. It's still a bit hit and miss for sure, but it's something where you're actually getting value out of that result. Again, this is a fairly straightforward one. We've had to deal with it for a long period of time, but sometimes you just don't have the normal maps, or you're upgrading a very old game that doesn't have them. So previously, you would get it from the RGB data, but now we can actually feed in training data that actually gives us a much better normal map out. And this exists. This is something that you can jump and you can actually try today. Training simulation. So again, we're looking at pain points for artists that maybe just take them a whole day to do. Can we get that into one button? Can they click a thing and get a thing? So the pain point here is the erosion simulation on terrain height fields in Houdini can take a whole bunch of time, or even 5 minutes. And so what can we do to actually get training data in and get a predictive result out? And so this is something that obviously side effects have done themselves, but it really is, to hook onto, a place to consider, any of you that use Houdini, a place to actually create both the input and output data for training. So Houdini can be fantastic to actually give you 2 images that then you can make a training model on. So I also want you to think not just how are we using it in our pipeline for the tool, but how can we create our own training data to then feed into a tool that then solves a problem. So for this, for example, is just kicking out the uneroded height field and the eroded. We've got 2 images. We can put that into the training and then actually kick out an eroded height field without doing the sim at all. So it can save that 5 minutes times however many minutes of alteration and potentially save a whole day's worth of work. So again, as tech artists, we're looking to solve that pain point. Upscaling old assets, so this is probably one you've seen. This can be a big one. You've seen lots of remakes, lots of reboots at the moment. Getting really old, terrible, ugly data. For our game, we work on every single IP that Ubisoft's ever created. And some of them are incredibly old, some of the meshes are terrible, some of the textures are tiny, missing normal maps like we talked about. So having a way to actually feed these through and get 4K textures from something that was minuscule can be a massive time saver. Again, material creation, and this again could be a resource decision, but some places don't have an internal material library. Some people maybe just are working in background, they just need something very quick, and they don't have that immediate availability of the 2D artist. This is something where through an LLM you can actually get a result, not a terrible result at all actually, again available now to actually have a play with. Skybox creation, very similar again. So this is vistas, you can have someone that just builds vistas and that's all they do. Houdini again is fantastic for this. Depending on the level of control, depending on how many biomes you have, this could be something that is worthwhile saving that time of that artist. Or if you literally don't have the resource for it. So, or again, a starting point before adding points of interest. And there's a fun one. I was chatting to Manny today. He's been in the film for decades. And so he's actually in part of his auto rigger, has actually gone in and added a function that will recognize the mesh and then create the rig for that mesh. So if it sees a helicopter, it'll build a helicopter rig. If he sees a unicycle, it'll build a unicycle rig. If he sees a biped, it'll create a biped rig. So this is something where he's actually using the recognition part as a way to save time for background or middle ground assets. So for hero props, probably not, but for, hey, we need a bunch of background action, it's a different conversation. Good, and another one, how am I doing for time? But I'm getting close to the end. Mocap, so this is a big one, obviously, for Ubisoft. So pain points are sometimes you'll have missing data, missing trackers, you'll get data that's not usable. Being able to actually get a track from something that has failed is really useful. Or if there's just general cleanup, just that time it takes for a cleanup artist to do their work is potentially something that then we can just have the animators working with it rather than doing all the cleanup and spend a lot of time for noise removal. Good, okay. So as I say, instead of looking at the technology and seeing if it fits, as tech artists, we really should be looking at the problems and seeing what solutions we can use. So that's, I did want to mention just a couple of things that might be fun to have a look at. Definitely Adobe Firefly, there's a lot of work going in, and it really lowers the bar for content creation. So you'll just see more people able to do more things of a lot of these tools, a lot of these solutions that are coming off the shelf. And I do have one for Wonder Dynamics.
They say all great stories start with a sense of wonder. And what if bringing those stories to life wasn't limited by our resources, but only by our imagination? Welcome to Wonder Studio, where making movies with CGI is as simple as selecting your actor and assigning a character. The system uses AI to track the actor's performance across cuts and automatically animates, lights, and composes the CG character directly into the scene. Whether it's one shot or a full sequence, Wonder Studio analyzes and captures everything from body motion, lighting, compositing, camera motion, and it even tracks the actor's facial performance. All the artist needs is a camera. Filmmaking is a medium of creativity and collaboration between artists. There's no AI that can replace that. Wonder Studio was built to empower those artists while still keeping the existing 3D process in mind.
When you see something like this, and certainly when you actually dig into the website, this is very much targeted for content creators. So this is for people that want to jump on and make something on YouTube and get it up and running, which is absolutely fantastic for. And when it works, it's going to be great for them. And there are going to be some of these tools that you will see filter through into VFX for sure. But for all the problematic shots and all of the ones that are very technical and very challenging to do, they're the ones that we're still going to need to throw the artists at. So it was just a word of caution to say, yeah, when you see this, it can, again, look like it's all singing, all dancing, and solve everyone's problems. But it's very much showing it in its best light, not an actual shoot that you're going to do or be involved in your careers. So yeah, so if you take away nothing else today, it should just be this. It should be we're assessing AI and machine learning as part of the tools pipeline for Tech Art. And we're just using it to solve those problems. And as tech artists, keep your finger on that pulse, like keep that curiosity, keep looking at things, how the industry changes, stay on that wave, because just like my career has just been a long and involved in all of that emerging tech, it's allowed me to continue as a tech artist throughout that whole period. So I will make any references available. If you do want to have a deep dive, come catch me afterwards and we can get you, have a chat about getting you set up. Maybe we can share something else and maybe we can make like a Google Drive and put some resources on stuff. Just to wrap, I can show you a video for our game.
This is XDefiant, a free-to-play competitive shooter featuring fast-paced gunplay complemented with specialized factions. So, what are the factions? Our factions are all drawn from iconic Ubisoft worlds and represent distinct classes, each with unique abilities and ultras. You can choose any character from any faction to assemble your team of 6 players. And during the game, you can change your faction or loadout to adapt your strategy. For your loadout, choose from a large arsenal of weapons and attachments to customize and fit your playstyle. At its core, XDefiant features realistic gunplay and the fun, familiar mechanics of an arena shooter. Each battle will take place on one of our 14 starting maps. Play casual matches and have fun with players of all types and skills, where every match delivers an unpredictable and unique experience. Or play ranked mode in competitive matchups against your peers to push yourself further and see what you're truly made of, whether you're a beginner or ready to dominate the game. XDefiant is free with crossplay, so jump in with your friends across platforms. And as a live game with fresh new content every single season, XDefiant will continue to deliver an accelerating experience that will always be free to play and never pay to win.
All right, thanks for watching and staying till the end. I hope you enjoyed the presentation by Daniel Ocean and that you learned a ton. Now, YouTube seems to think that you might like more content in this area and will be recommending you this particular video right now. And I hope you enjoy it. Thank you.